This is Hunt Nebraska, the official podcast for insight into Nebraska's hunting and shooting sports community. Be sure to give us a follow on Facebook, our space for sharing stories, information, tips, and techniques. Now, Hunt Nebraska.
Oh, that was a bad clap.
Well, that was lousy. I'm not going to lie.
It's going to be. It works though. I mean, all we have to know is that
you did
that
clap.
it's there.
You
that you
did
can
clap.
We have to get our centerpiece in.
There you go, the shriveled apple. And welcome back, everybody, to the Hunt Nebraska cabin. I'm Hershey. He's Jeff. There's Kayla. There's Hunter. We are all back in the studio. And guys, feeling a little bit of blue. And Jeff, I'm glad you're representing. We are recording this on the 1st of March. And we can officially say that all hunting seasons that had their beginning in 2022
had their end.
Are now closed.
Yep. Closed.
So the 22-23 hunting seasons are done. However, the 23, dare I say, 24 hunting seasons are well in front of us. In fact, some of those things are taking part. Not really a hunting season right now, but the one show in town, if you want to burn some powder, is the light goose conservation order going on now for quite a few weeks as those birds make their way north. And they are making their way north in big droves. The nice thing is there's so many of them that it's going to go on for a while. We've got a lot of adults that have moved into the state, and we're seeing flocks in the thousands, if not the tens of thousands. Some of you guys have probably seen some of the videos coming from across Nebraska. Saw another one last night, just impressive. I mean, it was, I don't know how many thousands, probably down in the south central part of the state, probably several thousand in the air, and probably another 10, 15, 20,000 on the ground. Just amazing. And our good friend Janice from the Harlan County area was talking about just nonstop noise.
Yeah, they're here. They're here. They're spread out through Missouri and Kansas, Nebraska. They are here, and I mean it's pretty darn impressive.
Now you've been out for them already.
I have. I spent just a couple days staring at the sky, and I have to say, for all the effort we put in, not a lot of reward in terms of harvest. We did shoot some birds.
I've been telling people you got your limit.
Yeah.
Each day.
And I tell everybody else the same thing. I tell them I always got my limit both days. And but I remember one flight on Sunday that started at about 2:00 going overhead, and by 3:30 it was still not done.
Wow.
I mean, that was a lot of birds.
It's fun. Kayla and I got to watch as we were coming back from North Platte. We hit that evening meal. Some were coming off the river, some were going back to the river, some were switching fields. It's just fun. Especially in the heart of a waterfowler, right? When you see nonstop birds. I mean, when they're moving around, you're just like, this is cool. This is what I live for.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of snow goose hunting is, you're never out of sight of the quarry, right? You're never out like when you're out duck hunting or Canada goose hunting, there could be lulls of, maybe a couple hours where you don't see a bird in the sky, and then all of a sudden they start flying and you're seeing things. But with snows, I don't know that too often you're out of, especially in some of the heavy areas, I don't know that you're too often without sight of a bird. I mean, they're always in the sky. And I think for the novice, that's kind of one of the fallacies that they sit down in the layout chair or whatever, and they're looking up, and all of a sudden there's birds, 5 minutes later, and think, oh, this is going to be good. And 5 years later, they're still seeing birds. And it's not necessarily good, but they're still seeing birds because they're always in the air.
Yeah. How many game animals can you think of that are like that? There's not too many.
Not too many where your opportunities are in the millions.
At least there's always a glimmer of hope, right?
It doesn't take long to abandon hope, but there's always that glimmer. Yeah.
Now this early in the season, it's going to pick up, but snow geese are obviously the predominant bird there. There's some other geese, but the one thing, if there is anything besides they're both considered waterfowl, Kayla, that I think the spring northbound migration shares with, say, teal season in early fall, late summer, is all the other waterfowl that are around. You can't touch them. I mean, you're zeroed in on the fall and teal only. Right now, you're zeroed in on those light geese, snow geese, Ross's goose. That's it. But doesn't mean they're not part of the show. I mean, you still see some Canada geese. You still see some mallards and pintails, and they'll work the spread and keep you excited. And that's, like you said, part of the fun.
Yeah.
Is not just seeing the snow geese and all of them, but seeing some of the other.
The pintails that we
migrating.
saw over the weekend were in their beautiful plumage. And just, we're on land, right? And they're just coming, hovering right over you, looking at this big glob of snow geese feeding, and probably 15 feet off the ground, just kind of hovering there, and then they're gone. It was pretty cool. It was pretty darn cool. And of course, we saw mallards, but the pintails were, one of my buddies just said some redheads were in town here that he was looking at. So, yeah, it's a cool time to be out looking for waterfowl.
There you go. Now, that's one of those things, I believe, this is just my anecdotal observation, folks. There's probably fewer snow geese hunters in the springtime, or those chasing during the conservation order, than there was 15, 20 years ago when it first got going. That I could be wrong about that. I don't see folks out taking advantage of it near like I did as far as the spreads out in this field. Driving home, used to see at least 2 or 3 spreads that would, once they put them out, they'd build them and rearrange them sometime day to day or week to week, but they were always out there. Now they're gone. But if there is an opportunity to get out and burn some powder, this would be the time. You got to hit it right. But Jeff, what would be one of the biggest tips you could give someone that wants to try it for the first time or thinking about getting into it?
For the first timer, I'd say go with somebody that has all the equipment, all the decoys, because now I know guys, especially when you get into some of those huge flight areas, southeast Nebraska, northwest Missouri, and some of those areas. I know guys who'll go out and take 12 decoys, go out in the field, middle of the field, and plop those 12 decoys down and have success. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But the reality of it is the guys that are having the bulk of the success have pretty good sized spreads. And so, and some equipment, some basic equipment. So find somebody that has that and latch onto them. Get out there and hunt with them, because you'll learn a ton and decide if you want to invest and how much you want to invest into that endeavor.
What about jump shooting or kicking them off a pond?
It can be great, but for a novice, for somebody who's a novice, I almost shy away from that, because there's other non-target species you got to worry about. So that's always kind of something in the back of your mind. It's just a little bit more controlled chaos bringing birds into a decoy spread. There's nothing wrong with jump shooting birds. Snow geese are made for jump shooting, if you ask me. You just got to know what's there, and do a little homework on that. It's not just jumping birds. It's not going to just be snow geese in the area.
Good stuff. Hunter, have you seen the report that Dr. Vertiska helped, one of his students actually, I think, wrote it and did a lot of the studies on decoying compared to jump shooting snow geese in the spring, that the ones coming to the decoys are probably a little bit less shape than the average snow goose, which is kind of information.
No, I haven't.
It's interesting.
I haven't seen that one. I'll have to check it out.
It is. It's kind of a neat study, because it makes sense, right? The fittest birds are, not just flying into the decoy spread, but those that need a break or need to feed or whatever the case may be, coming into the spread, and so you'll be taking out a lot of the weaker birds, and so I saw that. It's kind of interesting. There's some new research now on snows. We can get into that later. That might have impacts on the future of snows and the land use conservation order. I think that's probably, to me, some of the most significant research right now. Yeah,
well, just give us the synopsis, because I think I know what you're talking about.
I'll probably screw it up bigger than anybody. But
that's all right. We're not recording this.
Yeah. No one will know the difference, right?
Mark that tape at the 8-minute mark.
But some of the more recent research suggesting that our snow geese, because of the change in weather patterns, the change in you can call it climate change, whatever you want, but the thaw is coming a little sooner than it has been over previous years.
On their nesting grounds.
On their nesting grounds. And so they're nesting a little earlier. The hatch is coming a little bit earlier. And when those geese hatch, the grass nitrogen content isn't high enough, or the grasses aren't to sufficient size, or haven't come through the germinated yet, or the nitrogen content's low enough to where it's not giving the gosling, the geese, the best chances survival, so the brood survival rate has started to decrease fairly significantly. And what that means is, and this has ramifications immediately, because what that means is not only will we see potentially declines in snow goose numbers over the next several years, which we probably need to anyway still, but it also means that those coveted juvies that come in late through the migration that offer hunters just a ton of opportunity, those numbers may be decreasing, meaning that opportunity could be decreasing over the next few years.
Which is interesting. In any species, waterfowl especially, if you're decoying them, the juveniles are the ones more susceptible to
they haven't run the gauntlet 20 times
because they haven't seen all the tricks and not near as wary at times. But that's really interesting because they are a species that for forever. I mean, generations. You can say that, but in a goose's life, what is that? 15 years. But forever, they've been evolving to race up to the tundra, nest just as soon as they can, hatch out their goslings, get them to flight stage, and start their fall migration south again. I mean, it was a timing thing. And I know early on what helped keep those bird numbers down at times is if they got up there and then, water still froze, still snow on the landscape, it delayed the nesting cycle and they had less success. Yeah. Well, now it's kind of interesting that given the opportunity to go fast and they're taking advantage of it. Yeah. It hurts them on the other end.
To summarize it in more simplistic tone, everything in nature is connected, right? And everything is specifically timed out in nature. It's been happening for thousands of years. It isn't like this is new. And anytime you do something that adjusts that time scale for nature, the consequences can be interesting.
That race to get up there and nest fast might end up
being
biting them in
the tail feathers. Yep.
That is interesting. But, folks, even if you don't chase snow geese or give them a go this spring, get out there and enjoy it. I mean, is there anything more impressive than just watching those fields turn white and the cyclones coming down or taking off from a field? I mean, and listen to it. I mean, it's fun listening to that bark of the snow goose.
It really is. And you see all those lines in the sky, and then some days it's just clouds, and then some days the actual lines that come in overhead. And I swear they're spelling something in those lines. I haven't figured it out yet, but I think I do, and I'm not happy about it. But you see those lines and all that. But we were counting lines the other day, and there are about 100 geese in a line, roughly. And we might have seen 10,000 lines. So you do the math. I don't know. It's a lot of birds.
And what's interesting is, for some reason, snow geese especially seem to have wavy lines. Seems to me like Canada is a little bit straighter for some reason. I don't know if they're just better at geometry or if there's an advantage to either way. But
they're just a little bit more organized.
Yeah, probably.
My mother-in-law's in town from Illinois, and she was impressed. She's, what are all those specks flying through? And they just keep coming and coming.
Tell her it happens every day, all day, every day.
If you move to Nebraska, you'll have a great late winter.
That is neat. Getting to see some sandhill cranes in the mix as well in central Nebraska. That numbers have jumped up, and I'm sure with the warm weather we've got forecast only gonna go. But anything more on snow geese? Because I want to get into something else. Anything more? Any questions?
Do you have any questions on snow? I know you said there were some things you wanted to learn about snow goose hunting, but I think. Is it all answered now? Or?
It's all answered. All right. Every single question.
Okay.
Which hopefully as we get the platform up and running, learnhunting.org, we need to have spring snow goose as an option on that, because I think that'd be wonderful. That's one where misery loves company, so I really think that's the way to go. The more people you can have out there setting up decoys and taking advantage and having fun is going to make it more enjoyable for everybody. So we are in March. And now we are starting something new on our Hunt Nebraska Facebook page, folks. You're going to want to check out it. You're probably going to want to be part of this. It is, make sure I've got it right, it's called I Wonder Wednesdays. Is that right?
We'll go with that. That sounds like a good idea. I like that. Hershey coined it right here on the show. I Wonder Wednesdays.
Starts with a W. I know that. There's alliteration
Two W's.
We're taking questions in from folks that are either new to hunting, newer, or maybe they've got some really in-depth questions. We've already seen several of them that have come in from our social media platforms and other venues as far as what's going on. I just recorded the first one today about the federal duck stamp. So you want to check that out. It's already posted there on Hunt Nebraska, our Facebook page. But got me thinking, there's a lot of things. I mean, part of the fun of being in the outdoors, and especially in the hunting and shooting world, is there's just things we always start questioning. Things that, why does it work this way? Why is it not that way? Talking about snow geese, for example. How can there be so many of them and they be so hard to hunt, for example?
Yeah.
What is the best decoy spray? What is the best snow goose decoy out there? What would you say?
Good question. I'm a huge fan of head socks with heads on them. And you can put thousands of them out in the field. And with the slightest breeze, they offer movement. And one thing we know about snow goose when they're feeding, they don't just sit there and feed. They're constantly moving and hopping and moving and hopping and moving. And so I like socks with heads on them. And what we've started doing the last 7-8 years it really appeals to me. And that is you have those little 2-foot stakes of socks, and you'll have some with heads. And of course, your bulk of your socks are not going to have heads because they're cheaper. But socks with heads, and then 3-foot socks with heads that stick up higher above the ground to hide the hunters underneath them when you're in the field.
There you go. And those are the socks are probably different than what you use for Canada goose hunting. So which brings me to this. This is one question that I've often had, and I still have it when it comes to goose hunting, is back in the 90s they came out with the Bigfoot decoy. And I thought, now that looks like a goose. I mean, that thing right there, that is as goosey as you can get without being the real thing. Well, I've been proven wrong many times, and now the realism in goose decoys and most decoys, turkey included, just phenomenal. Can they get any more realistic?
Decoys so real, you got to feed them. Yeah. It's just as real as it gets. Right
can they get more realistic? We've all seen the spreads and the decoys there at the local sporting goods stores. Man, they sound like they should be making noise. You're shocked that they don't move just a little bit.
The only thing they don't have yet is in any bulk numbers is decoys with feathers on them. They all look like feathers. They're sculpted, and some of the sculpting, I agree with you. When you drive up to a field, you're looking at that field. You could be 50 yards away, going, "Oh, is that a real one? Is that a goose? Is that a goose?"
I remember walking out with Nick to the blind. It's like, "There's a goose. There's a goose in the decoy." No, that's a decoy. No, that's a goose. And we were going back and forth, and we convinced each other that the other one was right for half the walk. It ended up being a decoy, but we went back and forth because it was so hard to tell. Not only are they realistic, but now they're giving them feet. Now, I don't know what a goose decoy needs feet for, because I'm not sure there's any flock or bird up there again. They're looking down, just like, let's count the number of feet they have down there. That might not be the right spread. It might be the wrong spot. But
it almost begs, do they need to become any more realistic, or
that's a good question. That's a good question. Once we went to flocked birds and the sculpting that is just incredibly realistic, you really kind of ask yourself that question. Do they need to be any more real? And would them being more realistic bring more birds down out of the sky?
Two different questions. Yep. The first question: do we need a more realistic? Yes, we do. That's the only way you're going to sell more decoys to the hunters. The first thing you got to do is attract the hunter's attention.
Well,
and
it's just
tell
like
them
lures.
That it's better than
it's just like lures.
Yes.
What's that little silver slab that's been catching fish for eons? No one out today. You can see the belly of the fish and the ripples and the scales and everything. Does that help? I don't know.
Great example, because they now take pictures of actual bait fish and put them on the side of a crankbait, right?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know any walleye that's sitting out there just like, blue alewife? We don't have blue alewife here. What's going on? They see colors because it's going past them at 3 miles an hour, which is pretty fast underwater.
Flashes and colors.
So it's one of those things you got to grab attention. To be honest with you, do they help? I'm sure sometimes they do. That day when there's no wind, Canada geese, snow geese with just as many eyes, but there's that time when they can just circle and circle and circle and circle and circle, and they've got nothing. But when they're kneading down and they can't expend that as much energy, probably not. That would be my thought. Because you still see people, folks, we have a good friend by the name of Dale who spent, 2 months down in Florida, and I don't know if you guys saw what he was shooting ducks over. I realize ducks, geese, maybe potato, but painted up 20-ounce pop can bottles. That's what he was shooting his limits of redheads and everything over that at the end of a dock. So sometimes I think we overthink it. In fact, there were studies years ago that said the best colors for decoying ducks are black, bar none. Black. It just contrast on the water.
If you talk to our waterfowl specialists, they'll tell you when they do flyovers for counts, they'll tell you A lot of, especially on our ducks, a lot of decoy spreads sitting out there on the pond look just like black dots. Doesn't matter what species of decoys you have, they all look like black dots out there. Yeah. And so, there's something to be said about that.
I was at Tammy and I, my wife and I were at a local WMA about a month ago. It was warm winter day and going for a hike with the new baby and get to the parking lot and start walking and on the lake there. And there's a bunch of geese right there. So we walked a little bit closer, maybe 20 more yards. I'm like, oh, there's a blind there. There's hunters over that geese. We turn around. So they tricked me even, but it just makes you wonder. Yeah, I think there's a lot more to it certainly than just the decoys too. Beyond.
The other thing I think technology could help is movement in the spread, right?
Yes.
Because I think that all these blobs just sitting there doing nothing is not near as sexy as blobs sitting there with some movement or heads moving up and down. We've got those decoys now that the Canada goose flaps its wings every once in a while, then they go down, and then it's intermittent. Then it flops its wings, and then the wings go down. Yeah, and I think that's good. I think those kind of things are really good. I would like to have more technology. I haven't figured it out yet. That would allow you to put wings into the spread that you could move with, from the blind. We got this right now. We got those big fishing rod type poles that get out there about 20 feet, and then you've got a Canada goose kite, if you will, flag they call it, on the end of that thing, and you wave it in the air and then bring it to the ground and bring it up the air, and it look like birds setting in. I'd like to figure out better ways to do that farther out into the spread. Obviously a 50, 60 foot pole isn't going to cut it, so you got to figure something out there. But having those wings moving, I think that could be good.
That's a good one. Here's another one with waterfowl. How is it every time that you decide either to pick up or go adjust the spread?
That's where they come in. Absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
Don't understand that.
I don't know, but if they haven't flown for a couple hours, go adjust the spread.
And then they give you just enough time to get excited. They keep flying towards you as you run back to the boat or the blind or what have you. And then you get in and then they veer off.
Yeah.
They know.
Yeah. And we've had birds. We've had, hunters out in the spread adjusting decoys, and of course they hear a bird and they freeze and go down to their knees or something like that, and had birds come in, right over the top of them. But usually that's kind of when you've been had. My wife and I joke about this because she'll once in a while I'll call her or she'll call me in the blind, and sometimes I'll step out of the blind so I'm not talking over everybody in the blind. And so many times I'm out there talking, oh, birds, and and I get down and get back in the blind. That's kind of our joke. She'll text me once in a while, do you need me to call? Because I guaranteed if you do, there'll be birds coming in.
To me, that right there is the epitome of fair chase. That's how you know you're doing it right. When you get caught and you get stuck, and they know what you're doing.
I'm not sure what's fair about it for the hunter, but oh well, yeah.
They do, but even early season, back to teal season. I brought it up once, but you sit there, and first hour, nothing. Second hour, nothing. All right, I think I'll go. And as soon as you stand up to go get into the decoys, you put your gun down, it's just like, where'd all these teal come from? I mean, they're dropping down, they're buzzing past you, and you go sit back down. Another hour of nothing there, nothing. I mean, it's just odd. I also get a kick out of it, and you see this probably with Canada geese more than anything else. Is you get, and folks, we're here in Lincoln right now, and we get a good amount of wintering Canada geese here in the capital city. Thousands. And I know a lot of other towns from North Platte, Grand Island, and whatnot, same thing. They get a good amount of wintering birds. You see these wintering flocks that get up, and there might be 20, 30, 40 birds in these groups. And they all get up, and you can tell they have a spot in mind because they're not wavering. They're headed in one direction once they get airborne, and everybody gets in formation, and they go. And no matter how much you call, flag, wave at, whatever,
pray,
they're going in that one direction. And then it seems like all of a sudden this one peels off. And you can just almost hear them say, I made a mistake. And they just peel right back and land right where they took off.
Yep.
What's the purpose?
Yeah, wasn't ready for it. Yeah.
I want to know why. That's one thing that's got me.
I've asked them this very question. I have asked many geese that very question because it's one that really rages on, and they're keeping it pretty tight beaked. They're not giving up.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? I mean, what's the purpose? He could have stayed put because there's more geese back there. You can hear them there in that pond. Why did he decide to get bad peer pressure?
He got the call back.
Like when you leave home and get down the road and then you remember you forgot something.
Isn't it amazing?
Turn back home and. Yeah, and maybe you're there for another half hour doing something before you hit the road again.
Another great I wonder thoughts is the the further away you get from home, the more you realize, and you can think
And
more clearly.
What is that inflection point? It depends on what you forgot, but what is that point of no return where you decide, 5 minutes out, I forgot my phone, I'll go back. 10 minutes out, I forgot my laptop, I'll go back. 15 minutes out, how bad do I need a laptop today? 20 minutes out, I'm not making any phone calls. That's a tough one.
But you can sit there at home like, have I got everything? I'll make a mental list, and you can't. You're just blocked. Yeah. As soon as you get away from home, clarity.
That's why when I leave for hunting trips, we got to talk. We just need talk going on. I don't want to think about anything I forgot because it just eats at you for 7 hours all the way out west somewhere what you might have forgot.
That's why people that don't hunt or shoot or maybe even fish don't understand why there's so much stuff in our trucks. It's because we don't want to have to remember it. It's already packed.
Amen. People say it all the time. You got a lot of stuff back there. I'm not a hoarder. That's not why it's there. It's just I don't want to forget stuff.
You got a plan B, C, D.
That's right. I got backup for the backup for the backup.
Well, and the thing you forgot the first time is the first thing you're going to remember when you pack the next time, or you pack it even though you don't need it.
Well, exactly right. The things you forgot become the stuff you pack in that truck, and it's stuck there forever. And when you get a new truck, it's always kind of funny to go under the seats and start finding stuff. It's like, oh, those boot warmers. I wonder how old those are. Oh, 6 years. Yep, that's a little old. I hate when I lose food, though. Gosh, I hate losing food back under the seats.
Kayla, what popped in my mind as soon as you said that was batteries for a headlamp, because we just assume our batteries are going to last forever, and then all of a sudden when they don't, we realize we don't have any backups to that. We got to go buy it. But when you jump into the truck next time, there's going to be like a 16 value pack of AA batteries sitting there.
Yep.
That, like you said, Jeff, well, sooner or later, they're just going to discharge because you bought too many of them. But my gosh, you're not going to be short the next time your headlamp goes dead. But that's a good one. Anything about other waterfowl that makes you guys go, well, I wonder why?
Well, constantly. I mean, if you're a waterfowl hunter, you're constantly wondering why. Why do birds come in and hover and they just got their landing gear out and they're coming in, and they don't flare. They just fade off. And it's like, where I mean, there's times where I got to go talk to my counselor after the hunt because, I mean, that stuff that drives you nuts. It just eats at you. So, yeah, I get that. I understand flaring. Flaring, I get that. Something wasn't right. But they just lose it. It's like halfway on the approach, they just lose interest and just fade out of there, So yeah, those things drive me nuts.
I really do think birds get easily distracted. I think they forget. Spring turkey season's right around the corner. How many times have you had a bird just, oh yeah, he's on fire, he's moving, he's getting closer, and then all of a sudden you see them and just like, that bird could care less that there's a hen over here anymore. They've just completely forgot their whole purpose of the spring mating season. They're out there scratching tic-tac-toe boards in the bean stubble. I mean, I got to assume that they just are they've got such a little mind that as soon as they have another thought, they forget what they're doing originally.
Yeah. When it comes to turkeys, that's a whole nother story. Because, I mean, why on Monday will that Tom sit back behind you in the creek just gobbling his ever-loving head off every time you make a hen turkey yelp or cluck or purr, but he'll never move. He will sit back in that creek all day long till he goes hoarse. And on Tuesday, you'll click the call, and all of a sudden, and he just comes running out of the creek right up to the hen. Why? It doesn't make any sense.
The frustrating one, and I'm still working on figuring out these Nebraska birds yet. You'll
never do it.
I don't think I will, but I had a bird on a beeline to me, watching it come in from 150 yards, just on a straight beeline, and got to 60 yards and started circling around me. And did it see me? Did it not like my decoy setup? What is it that caused that?
It's a turkey.
It's a turkey, yeah.
That's frustrating, and
it is.
It makes you start to check off, do something a little bit different next time, and trial and error. But then you get a different bird, and they do something completely different. So
I could recommend a really good therapist that understands hunting seasons.
That could be.
Mine understands the hunting seasons really well.
and that's a great point, because I've had kind of a combination of that, where the bird's gobbling behind me and wondering why my decoy won't come, and just, they're just sitting there, and I can't get turned around on them. They are going to town. They're sometimes in shotgun range or archer range, whatever I got, but I can't get turned around to get the shot on them. And then, they want that decoy to come to them. I understand that part. But then all of a sudden they decide, they just get frustrated. They lose interest. They stop gobbling. They unpuff. And then they'll walk right past that decoy and just ignore the snot out of it. And just like, why not stop here and get me a shot? Nope, they just kind of untuck and off they go. Because I don't think they know enough to. They're not smart enough to be dumb. Let's put it that way. I think they just get sidetracked and get on to something else.
Well, and going with that, why? Why do wasps decide to make nests in your turkey blind? I mean, there's 100,000 places they can make a nest. You get in the blind, you're sitting there relaxing, you lean back against the wall, and all of a sudden you hear, you look up, and there's a zillion of them right there. That'll get your attention.
I think because it's a cool spot to be. I mean, when the wasps get together and ask, "Hey, where are you living?"
Creek.
You don't want to say, "Well, you remember that old crapper out back?" Well, I'm in that double bowl, deception, camouflage, turkey blind.
Next year, I'm putting a really crappy blind out. I'm going to see if they like that because I don't think they will. Oh, that gets your attention.
Well, since we're on turkeys.
We shouldn't be, but we are.
Turkeys, I mean, they've got all sorts of means of transportation. I mean, they can walk. They're pretty good at running. I mean, they're pretty darn fast. They got these big wings. They fly up to a tree every night. Why on earth does a little 3-4 strand barbed wire fence cause them such consternation? I mean, why is it all of a sudden it's just like they've met this large mathematical equation that they can't get around? They just look at it and they try to work around it. They move papers around. I mean, they just up and down and they can't figure it out. Two flaps and they'd be over.
Yep. And on any other day, that'd be the very next day. Why? Very next day, come to run into the decoy. They'll fly over it, run under it, whatever it has to be. But the day before, they run into it and just like, oh no.
It's like they've never seen it before.
Yeah.
And we're in their world.
Yeah. I mean, why? Why?
I think again, you're back to that. They're too dumb for their own good. They can't problem solve themselves.
Not until there's a sense of urgency, and then they figure it out. But if there's no sense of urgency, I'll take the long route.
Yeah, and I'll just walk 2 miles down and see if there happens to be no fence down there.
It's like you come to a closed road. No through traffic. Well, if you're in a rush, maybe you go through it, but otherwise, if you're getting shot at, you might say
we'd never do that. But yeah. So why? Yeah, I wonder. How many hours have you spent in the turkey blind pondering these exact same things?
Many times. And then when you think they're not going to cross it, like, all right, I bumped them. They're nervous, but at least they'll get along this fence line. They're screwed. And no, they figure it out pretty fast. Yeah. And I also want to know why, when you're sitting at the base of a tree in the spring, that squirrel that sounded like a deer last archery season, last November, all of a sudden sounds like a turkey walking to you. How do they do that?
Stealth.
I mean, it's amazing. You go from sound, fox squirrel's like 2 pounds, maybe 3 if he's really chunky.
And wet.
And they can sound like that 200-pound buck that you've been waiting for, or 300-pound buck. But come spring, they sound like that 20-pound gobbler. Right through the drive leaves. Why on day one will they $150 decoy that looks so real you can't hardly tell the difference, and he'll skirt that, and on day 2 he'll strut up to a 5-gallon bucket? Why? I mean, does that make any sense? Those are the things that drive me nuts. They get me going, and I don't know. Drive me nuts. Good stuff. And this is one you could throw out for waterfowl or turkeys, is the days you decide, all right, they're not going to be moving until late. So you kick back, and that's the day they decide to move early.
Why?
They're out in your field. All of a sudden, 2 hours before time where you usually see them strutting in the middle of the morning, they're out there right off the roost. Waterfowl, same thing, especially geese. Well, it's cold. They're not coming. They haven't moved the last couple of days till 1 o'clock, so we'll be out there at 10:30. Nope, they've already moved at 9. I mean, they seem to know. I don't know if they've got spies or what. How they figure that out is beyond me. So
yeah, I don't know. Turkeys, they're. I hate hunting turkeys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I do. Every single season. Last day of the season. Why, on the last day of the season, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, would you sneak up over a rise to see that tom that's been gobbling at you up in a roost tree? Why? Why at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, last day of the season, you'd be in a roost tree? That doesn't make any sense.
On a guy.
That doesn't make any sense at all. But that happened. Why? Don't know. But I wasn't happy about it.
Yep, these folks again. These are part of the I Wonder Wednesdays that we're doing on our Facebook page. These aren't questions we're probably going to be able to answer. These are questions that we have because the learning curve when it comes to hunting and the shooting sports never ends. Should never end. That's part of the reason we get out there. It's part of the mystery, isn't it? And if we had it all figured out, it'd be almost boring.
It wouldn't be near as fun if you knew, well, if there's a decoy pattern they'll always come into. There's a decoy, the turkey decoy, they'll always strut over for. It would be an old fast. I mean, it just would. It's the struggle. It's the highs and lows. It's you put all this effort and never get anything, and then the third, fourth time, you appreciate it so much because it's just so cool.
There you go. And our goal with this, as you can imagine, everybody is. We want to get answers out there. The things that we can answer, we're going to answer. The things we get to speculate, we're going to speculate on because that's part of the fun, and we want your questions. So we have some good things to cover on those I Wonder Wednesdays. Again, that's on our Facebook page. Here's one I don't understand very well, Kayla. Your dog, your bird dog, your duck dog, whatever it is, can just be awesome. I mean, just on fire. They've got it figured out. They're not making any mistakes. You're working with you as an amazing team. It's just happening. But as soon as you brag on your dog once, it's over. I mean, it's just all of a sudden that dog completely forgets what they're doing out there or decides, I'm going solo. We're breaking the band up. Why is that? How do they know that? They don't even have to hear you brag about them to decide, all right, today's the day I'm just going to bust every rooster out of range as quickly as I can.
Because you're showing them off. You want them to be amazing. So you got those undertones coming out, flowing to the dog, and he feels those undertones of nervousness, excitement, worried, all those feelings, and he's like, today's off. I'm just going to have some fun then.
Hey, I was spoken like a true dog trainer over there. That's probably as good an answer as you're going to get, buddy. That was pretty good, Kayla.
But it's just one of those things that's part of the fun. All right, I think we're going to put a fork in it there, folks. Make sure you give us a like or a subscribe so we can keep doing this, and you know when the next Hunt Nebraska podcast drops. But again, until we get to meet again, check out the I Wonder Wednesdays now happening on your Hunt Nebraska Facebook page. Thanks for being there. Hunt Nebraska, brought to you by your Nebraska Game and Parks Commission.